well, back into the top four this time, Miles, is your boys Aston Villa with an impressive win over Fulham. Ole Watkins will rightfully take the headlines, I think, for his clinical brace. His finishes were both excellent. But there's another player you think made a bigger impact on Villa's play, and especially their defensive shape this time around, and that's Pau Torres. Tell us what you think he brought to the team. And it's a back four that haven't played together so far as I'm aware. So it could have been so much different, but with Pau Torres at the back, that wasn't the case.
So a repetition of my vindication. I've been saying for the longest time the difference between Villa getting top four and not getting top four could be as simple as getting Pau Torres back fit. And in the last few games where Villa have kind of struggled, it was really clear that he was the player that they were missing, because he's by far their strongest centre back these days in terms of his quality, his organisation, his defensive capabilities. But what he brings going forward is so important for the way that Aston Villa play football, and their willingness to play out from the back, play around teams that are pressing them high. That all comes from Torres. No player on the pitch had more touches or played more passes in this game than Torres. He just took to it straight away already. And he moved the ball over 1,000 yards in this game. Again, I think it was the sixth time he's done that this season. So he's really successful at getting things going for Villa. And actually, if you look at their second goal, the way the team move, the way that they link the play, the way that they pass the ball quickly, that fluidity is missing when you miss a player like Torres. Not even in moves that he's not involved in, you can see the team benefits from having his presence there. They know that that's how they can play. They feel more comfortable doing it. So I thought it was huge having him back. I'm really, really glad. It's difficult because when one comes back, another one goes out again. And Carlos picked up an injury in training. So now we've got Carlos, Concert, and Mings still out. Although by the sounds of things, Mings is making a far speedier recovery than anyone anticipated. Obviously, then we've got Kamara now out for the rest of the season, which is heartbreaking. Yeah. Your entire defensive structure has taken a battering this year. Your first choice back four have all been out for prolonged periods, and now your defensive midfielder is. But the way they counteracted that against Fulham was excellent. Tielemans was fantastic. I thought, again, his creativity, the chances he was creating in the game, really strong. His pass for Watkins for the second goal showed he has settled at Villa now. There were questions about him when he first joined, but now he's had a bit more of a run in the team, time training. He'll find his position in this squad, definitely, and I'm really pleased to have him.
Really like the sort of fullback partnership of Matty Cash on one side and Alex Moreno on the other. I feel like it's quite a dynamic pair. And obviously Luca Dean, you've said in the past, you're not sure whether he'll get back into this team with that being the case. Are you confident that that's still the weakest area of the team? Because I know you said that in the past. That's kind of like the place you'd earmark to get a transfer in January. Obviously that didn't happen. But does that still worry you a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. Only going into kind of bigger games, because what Emery has always liked to do, obviously, is have one quite attacking fullback and one that sits back and plays a lot deeper. That's why we saw Consta kind of move to that spot. And for all of Cash and Moreno's strengths, they are both very attacking fullbacks. So it does leave you quite vulnerable. I find it really interesting that we play Cash as an attacking right back and Bailey just in front of him on the right-hand side, and play no real out-and-out left winger. It's kind of Ramsey that drifts out to the left-hand side to support Moreno. But all of our play goes down the left. And I think when Luca Dean is fully fit, we might see a bit more of him. He's had a phenomenal season until that injury. But I think probably both positions are up for grabs in the summer window. So hopefully they show enough to get them into the top four by the end, because they're back there now.
Yeah.
They just have to keep it. Like that, I'd always rather be in that position. I'd rather it was in Villa's hands than anyone else's. We've got a couple of really winnable fixtures coming up, and then we have Spurs straight afterwards. Massive. Now, if we win our next 3 games, I'll say I'm confident we'll get top 4. Right now, I still think we've got a few hurdles to get over, particularly with the injuries. But when you've got players like Torres coming back in and someone in the form of Ole Watkins, like, we've got to talk about him in a minute, surely. Because he's just, he's phenomenal now. 13 goals, 10 assists.
Yeah, that's unreal. I think my question for Dave was all Ole Watkins based, to be honest, because obviously the concern, I think, at the start of this game for some Villa fans was this makeshift defence, especially 2 left-sided centre-backs with Clement Longley there as well. That
had a great game, by the way.
Case. Who had a good game, yeah, but I think that was a Torres influence thing as well. Both very experienced defenders, but I think Torres marshalled that defence magnificently. But the clinical finishes from Ole Watkins, Dave, were vintage Watkins, I think, from last season. Do you know when we were talking about him being probably in that world-class bracket? Those finishes were world-class, weren't they?
I think particularly the first one. I thought those kind of goals are just I love to see them. It's just that this looks so smooth. Obviously, the turn and the finish, it's almost all in one motion. But we know he's capable of that, and he obviously went through a bit of a dry spell at the beginning of the year, but particularly over the last couple of games, he's shown again what he's capable of, and it's going to be interesting. Obviously, over the next couple of years, obviously Harry Kane's continuing to hit 30 now over the next couple of years. Whether Watkins is going to be able to make that position his own in that England team, because let's be honest, what is he, 27, 28?
Peak years.
He's at that period in his career when he should be starting for his national team, every single game. I'm sure if there was if Harry Kane wasn't around, he would be. It's a completely different player. Let's be honest. He's fully capable of doing a little bit of everything in that front line. He's makes a complete nuisance of himself constantly. He's always on the shoulder of the defender. He looks to drop in, drifts out wide when he wants to as well. So it would be fascinating to see if he does get that opportunity with England.
Well, that's the thing about Watkins that kind of fascinates me, is because there's not really many players like him. And I think for Villa as well, that's kind of a bit of a headache in some ways, because any injury to him, and it's very difficult to replace him because he's so unique to the way that Villa play. He's so unique as a forward player as well in what he brings.